Welcome back to the Elevate Your Running podcast. This is Coach Sarah, and I'm so excited for our guest today. We have Kylie Mantz on the podcast. Hi, Kylie. How you doing?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for accepting the invitation. We got to meet just a few days ago on Sunday, the day before the Boulder 10K in Boulder, Colorado. And you might be thinking to yourself, I've heard that last name before. Where have I heard that? Well, Kylie is married to Connor Mantz, and we got an exclusive 30 minutes with him and talking to him and listening about his experiences as a pro runner. And his wife, Kylie, was also there. And it was such a fun 30 minutes. I mean, it flew by. It was so cool. I think even just how like you entered the conversation with Nell Rojas sharing a very sweet story about how your husband was shopping in Nike specifically for you as a Nike sponsored athlete, specifically for you. And you just, it was like perfect timing. You just like walked through the hotel lobby and then you got to join us for the conversation. And that's kind of how this all came to be. And it was just a lot of fun on Sunday and Monday.
Absolutely. No, it was fun to be there.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of buzz. And Connor was going for his three-peat on Monday, which he got, which was super exciting. But this episode is going to be about you because your running story is pretty incredible. And I thought I saw something, I think it was in Runner's World, maybe just a few weeks ago about your running story and how you discovered that you are a very, very talented runner. So that's what this episode's going to be about. But for our audience who may not know you, can you just kind of give a general oversight of who you are?
Yeah, sound like what you said. I'm married to Connor. Originally, I am from Fresno, California, Clovis area. And then after I graduated high school, I went to BYU. And that fall semester, that was back in 2019, um, Connor and I met in a religion class. And so that's kind of how we met. But I am the oldest of five children, and so I have two siblings now at BYU and then two others still at home. Um, yeah, running is actually something really new. I didn't do it in high school. I didn't do it really before we got married, and so it's all super, super new, but I'm loving it.
Yeah, that's so cool. And when did you start? When did you start? I think I heard on Sunday, like you were running recreationally and then you transitioned into walking on to the BYU team as a senior. Is that right? Which is
Yeah,
yeah, and
yeah,
that's a pretty
that's it.
competitive team.
It is a very competitive team. It was a little wild, but yeah, I really didn't do sports in high school. I did it my freshman year and didn't really like it. And so I had other talents and things I wanted to do. I got pretty involved in school leadership, student council, and I play the piano and the organ. And so
Mm,
that's where I focus a lot of my time. And so sports kind of went by the wayside, but I always just loved to like go out and run. I'm like, oh, I'm stressed from a long day at school. I gotta go run. But
yeah.
I had no idea how far, I had no idea how fast I was going. Like it just was super low key. And so, yeah, that's kind of the basis of where I am.
No,
But yes, I did walk on.
yeah, when you were going out for these runs that I think we can all relate to because that's how I started running. I started running post collegiately, so a little bit later than you. And yeah, I mean, I would go out after work for a 5 mile run to just try and get the stress or get some fresh air or get the movement, maybe all of the things all at once. Were you wearing like a smartwatch or GPS watch, or were you just like going and not really paying attention to any of that?
No, I had no watch.
No what? I
No
love
watch.
it.
No. Yeah, like I have like probably an app on my phone. I think
Uh-huh.
I was trying to remember when I was going through your questions, but I'm like, I'm pretty sure I had like an app that would tell me, but I know like
Yeah.
my mom ran in high school,
Okay.
but she was really like she did track on kind of her It was more for off season. My mom cheered at BYU. And so my
Oh,
mom's more of the dancing and the cheer and gymnastics, and that
yeah.
was kind of her realm. But she did do track all through high school as well. And but obviously she focused more on the sprints, and
Yeah.
so sprints, hurdles, and obviously she would kind of keep running, and not as much as I think what she would like now, but that's kind of what she would do. And so she would tell me, like, well, if you go from here to that park, that's 4 miles. And so I would kind of just gauge based on actually what she would tell me.
That's so cool. So you just had like this route that your mom gave you. You went out. Now, did you listen to music? Did you listen to podcasts? Were you just out there with absolutely nothing?
I was an AirPod girl,
Yeah.
iPod girl. Like, I love my music. I still do. Like, especially on like easy runs. I got
Yeah.
music every day.
Yeah, yeah, I'm the same way. I love listening to music on easier recovery runs, workouts. It's a different space. You got to be focused on the track or focused in your interval. Same thing with racing. Did you have any indication of like how strong and how fast of a runner you are when you were in that recreational kind of running space, or what was kind of that aha moment that you thought, "Oh wow, I have something here."
Absolutely not. No. I my high school holds I went to Buchanan High School in California, and that holds the state track meet. And so my high school was very, very good in all things track in cross country. And so I always knew, and maybe there was a little bit of comparison, but honestly not too much. I really just I knew those were the good girls, and I did not want to do what they were doing. I just ran for fun. Like I was always sporty. I always liked doing sports, but I would
Mhm.
never consider myself an athlete. Absolutely not.
Yeah, I think that's so relatable though, especially for a runner to get into the space later in life. And I say later because you didn't necessarily run in high school or run through all 4 years in college. And I think that's something that a lot of adult runners kind of work with and kind of feel like that's their space that they're in until they kind of get to a point where maybe they flow through that. I want to say for context, Kylie ran a 36:18 on Monday at the Boulder Boulder. Is that right?
That is right.
Okay. And that's a 5:51 pace. Before we started recording, we were talking about the race. And, I think you were saying you were hoping to go a little bit faster. But the Boulder Boulder course is tough. It's hilly. I think mile 3 is the mile that's going to get you. And then you're just trying to either hold on or maybe you have a little bit more to give. But, that's still an incredibly fast pace. And I think you were ranked. Do you know where you ranked in the race on Monday?
I think I was 12th or 13th
Yeah.
finish.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that's about where I
Which is
was.
pretty cool. And like the first place citizens runner was Sarah Vaughn, who ran like 34 something. So you're
Right.
you're you're close.
Yeah, it was kind of fun to look at that, and we were in the pouring rain, and so
We
it was,
were.
yeah, it
Yeah.
was kind of wild.
Yeah, and you train in Utah, and I feel like, and based in, the races in Boulder, I train in Boulder. I would have to assume that like Utah running is very similar to Colorado running, where it's like you're running at altitude. There's very like low humidity most of the time, and we get really good running. It's not usually raining. Maybe we get a little bit of wind, but we generally have good running weather, and we're totally spoiled.
Yeah, I mean, probably same as you, but deal with a lot of snow in the winter.
Yeah.
And so that's not, but not a lot of rain. I would agree. And like you can find those places where you don't have a lot of wind. And so sometimes it is, depending on where you are on the canyon and all that. But yeah, a lot of times it's actually pretty great. And that's why people keep flocking to these little hot spots of runners.
I know, I know. Okay, so you like was there like an initial like spark or moment that truly made you like decide to give running or be like a more serious runner than the hobby runner that's going out for 4 mile runs, listening to music without a GPS watch? Like what was kind of that transition?
I do think that Connor does play a part in
Yeah.
into that. I again really didn't know what was going on. So I just for some context, we met in that fall of 2019 and we started dating pretty quickly. But I think coming up here to BYU compared to like running in Fresno, California, where it's super hot and not very pretty, I was like, it is beautiful here and
Yeah.
I want to go explore. And so one of the first questions, I'm like, oh, Connor, like, and I didn't know who he was. Like, I don't know much about this running world. And you like to run, you're on that track team. I like to run too. I bet we're the same person. Like, that was my level. Like, it was really, and he's too humble and he wouldn't ever say anything. But that was kind of the level that we were. So we would talk about what's going on in class and then a little bit about running. And he wouldn't really tell me like I'm the guy on the team. Like he didn't tell me any of that. And so I was like, "Well, do you have any more like fun that you'd like to run around here?" Gave me a couple loops and a couple places to go. And he's like, well, you could always go up the canyon to a couple of these hot places. And so one of our first dates or our first date was to go check out one of those running spots up the canyon. And so we didn't run it, but we just went up there and walked around a little bit. And that was our first date. And so
That's so cool.
just kind of explore. But a lot of my running was more just like, I want to go explore and see what's going on in Provo, more so than like I'm trying to get competitive with it.
Yeah. Yeah. And you have, I believe, been quoted saying that you started running to understand Connor's training better. And like, is there something specifically that made that switch for you to walk on the BYU team or to have like that transition? Can you kind of walk us through that?
Course, yeah. So after I kind of started exploring and whatnot, 2020 rolled around and COVID hit. And so instead of staying here at BYU, I actually went back to California. So Connor and I were doing this long distance thing. And in the process, I was like, man, like it's summer-ish, it's spring, summer. Am I going
Yeah.
back to BYU in the fall? Am I not? Is it going to be all online? That's not the BYU I wanted to go to. Like that's not the college experience I wanted, and
Yeah.
was trying to sort through my options and felt like I needed to serve a church service mission. And so I left BYU for 18 months, nearly 2 years, the whole thing, and was actually in Washington State for
Mm.
that amount of time and put everything school running that really wasn't that important at that time.
Yeah.
And so that's what I ended up doing. But Connor and I kept in contact the whole time.
Yeah.
And it's not like it was like a once a week I would hear from him. And so, because that's what you were allowed to communicate with people outside of the mission.
Yeah.
And so I knew that he was doing big things. I was not there for his two national championships.
Ah.
Like he just would tell me, I won another race. Like I didn't get much out of him, and my parents would kind of fill me in because at that point they were pretty invested. Who is this guy? You've been dating, you're still talking to him, what's going on? And so I would get
Yeah.
a little bit of an update there. But I didn't understand the weight of those two national championships. I came home and he was graduated with a mechanical engineering degree and was professional with Nike. So I came home to a completely different boy.
Yeah.
But we kept in contact, and I felt like throughout my mission, I really got to know Connor, not Connor Mantz, the runner, but Connor, this really sweet guy. And so we got married 6 months later, and I still had the rose colored goggles on. I really didn't, I really had no idea like what this running world meant and what his goals are.
Yeah.
And it was probably 6 months into it where it really started to hit. I was like, this is kind of a big deal. And you're all in here. And this isn't just for a little bit of time. Like you want to do this, you want to make this your life, pretty much. And like honestly
Yeah.
kind of freaked me out and I kind of kicked against the pricks a little bit. I'll be really honest.
Yeah.
I thought it was obsessive and I didn't think that that could be a substantial career either. I thought it was kind of silly. And so I remember one day he had probably just finished like a 25 miler, like something crazy training for the Boston Marathon. And
Mhm.
I remember being so frustrated because he was just sitting on the couch, not doing anything. And I was like, she's like, the kitchen needs to be cleaned and there's laundry to do and we have errands to run and you just want to sit there and do nothing. And I was kind of frustrated with him. And so I started cleaning but I did like I understood at that point that like, yes, you're tired, but I didn't like we were still so newly married that I didn't know how to communicate, please help me, and like, why are you just sitting on the couch type of thing.
Yeah.
And I remember getting a very clear thought, like, you have no idea what he's feeling. You try it. And I think that was kind of what shifted it, is it was like, oh yeah, I actually have no idea what it feels like to run 25 miles at a sub, 6-minute pace. Um, and so I really didn't have an idea of what that was. And so I think that initial thought, and then also a little bit of curiosity, like, yeah, that's right. I don't know what that feels like. Well, how far can I go? What does it mean if I try training like that? And it wasn't like all at once, it was just a little bit. And it was more just my curiosity, like, well, what if I try to do this? What if I show up at your workouts and maybe do a couple laps around the track that are faster? And so
That's
it started off
I love
like really, really small. And I remember getting back from a run, and Connor was like, why are you running? I was like, I don't know, I'm just going out to run, And he's like, but you do all of your easy runs like really fast. Why are you doing that? Like, what are you training for? Like, I don't train for anything. Who trains for things? Still like not understanding who he was. And so, yeah, but I think all through that he's like, well, you have a little bit, like, you kind of know, you don't know what you're doing, but you kind of know what you're doing. Like, what if you joined BYU's club team and jumped on that? And so I jumped on that, and so I actually had a little bit of an idea of what it meant to be on a team through that, which was pretty neat. And then, kind of in the middle of that, it was just we would kind of just joke around like, "Oh, but what if I walked on to BYU?" And so that started back in like 2023.
okay.
And we would always just joke about it, like, what if I did, But it was never anything serious. And then I ran at Brian Clay
Mm,
back in last year of 24, and I kind of had a breakout race for where I was, and it was kind of like, what if I, and those what ifs were like, maybe I could. And so I ended up catching Coach Taylor, like just walking out of the field house one day, and was like, hey, I'm not that good right now. We have the Olympics in 2 months, and we graduated in elementary education. And so, but I still had to do my student teaching that fall, right after
mhm.
the Olympics. And so I was like, this is kind of a long shot, but do you think I could at least have a semester before I graduated? And she's like, well, I'm a believer in dreams. And so work your tail off. No promises. Like, you got to be able to prove it,
Yeah.
but give it your best go. And so that kind of kickstarted a whole summer of like, we're training up in Park City, getting ready for the Olympics. And Connor had a workout, I would do a workout. And Connor's going out for a run, I go out for a run. He goes out to
Yeah.
double, and I'm not at a double point, but I'll go cross train.
That's
And
fair.
yes, yes, you're gonna go left, I'll go left. And so I just started to kind of mimic it, but also using, I had a really great, awesome coach on the little club team that I was on, who saw some potential in me. And I think that was probably one of the first people who believed in me in a way that I didn't believe in myself at that time.
Mm,
And so he kind of helped me, but then he was a PhD student at BYU, ended up getting a job at Harvard, and so he moved in the middle of the summer.
yeah.
And so I'm like, wow, that's kind of a mess. What am I gonna do? I I don't like, he kind of walked me through that whole process, and
Yeah.
then he was gone right before I could try out for BYU. And so our physical therapist, who's also super connected with all the runners here and pretty involved in everything, was like, I'll take you on. And but then kind of after the Olympics and teaching kindergartners all day, and I'm waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning to get a workout in, and then coming home and doing more, I totally got hurt and
Mm,
took a couple months off. And so I'm like, I have my tryouts in January, and I don't know how this is gonna go. So I just cross-trained like crazy and was able to get a little bit of mileage in, and then it was tryouts. And so I had a little bit of a miracle of a tryout and was able to walk on.
Oh my gosh. That's so incredible. So I want to piece this timeline together. So you joined the BYU club maybe in 2023. Does that sound right? 2023. And then you spent about a year on the club
Mhm.
with the club, and then the Olympics, you're referring to the Paris Olympics, like there's another Olympics in
Yes.
that was in August of 2024, and it was right around that summer where you run into Coach Taylor and you have that conversation about being a big believer in dreams and going after it. But you're student teaching, you're also training, you're doing all the things right, but there's probably a lot of extra stress going on and you
Yep,
got injured. Yeah. And so you rehabbed
totally.
with cross training, which is awesome. And then had tryouts in this January of 25 and walked on to the team. You got in. That's so incredible. It's so inspiring. I want to back up. I want to back up to 2023. What was that club environment like? Like, what was kind of your weekly schedule? How often were you running with other people versus solo runs? And kind of, what did you like the most out of that?
Yeah, they actually followed a lot of what Connor does, which was kind of nice. So they worked out Tuesday, Thursdays at 5 p.m. And they were pretty like you would divide up into groups. Like it was very organized. And here are your workouts and here are your paces. And there were, I mean, meets and I mean, there's meets all over Utah. And so they would
Yeah.
go travel down to southern Utah or up in northern or in Idaho, and so it was kind of fun. And I didn't get to travel very much just with my schedule, but it was super fun to kind of get into that. So I would run with people on Tuesdays and Thursdays when we had those practice days, and then every other day was more on my own. But I loved it. I think just having a community, I didn't fully understand that before is what made the difference. It made practice fun. We were cracking jokes in between reps and it just made it seem fun. And so I
Yeah.
think that was kind of what, and then having people just cheer you on. I had never had that. And so from a team standpoint, that wasn't there. And so there was something like they want me to do well. They want me to run faster. Like okay, like it was kind of, again, like
Yeah.
there were just a lot of new things all at once. And but I loved it. I think that community is what was attractive to me.
Yeah, it can be really uplifting. It can be a lot of fun. I think I'm a big believer in if you're running relaxed, you're running well. And if you're cracking jokes in between reps, you're probably relaxed in like the best way to like jump on the track and go for another hard effort. Was there like a specific workout during that year with the club, aside from like that breakthrough race that you had? Were you maybe in the back of your mind, or maybe your coach talked to you about it, or maybe Connor brought it up, where it was like, oh, there's something here?
Not a whole lot, to be
Yeah.
honest. Like it
Yeah.
was I wish that there was. It was fun to watch me progress a little bit at a time and be able to run with the top girls in that club.
Hmm.
And that was super motivating for me. And but I also think, well, I guess now that I'm talking through it, my coach wanted me to come in and do a lactate test. And I had no idea what that was. He's like, "You're gonna bleed today." I'm like, like I had no idea. And jump on the treadmill, you're gonna be doing and we're gonna keep stopping you and prick your finger. And I had no idea, but he looked at, and I don't, again, I could not tell you what scores, like what it came out to be, but he looked at me and he's like, well, you got some pretty awesome mitochondria. You
Yeah.
could, and I think that's what it was. Like, and that was
Yeah.
more, I think that was like right before he left for Harvard. He had done that test and he's like, you have something.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, and we just made the joke like, thanks mom for the mitochondria, and she was an athlete, and so it was kind of this like funny thing, but like I didn't take it very seriously, but I do remember that low lactate
Yeah.
test workout was like, huh. there might be a little bit of science behind this versus just having a good day.
Yeah, exactly. I am a big believer in, when you do have those good days or you have kind of that breakthrough rep or that breakthrough race, that it really is your potential peeking through. And it's just a matter of like that is going to be your new normal at some point as you continue to grow and evolve as an athlete. And that's a lot of fun. So that was probably the summer of 24. And then you walk on to the BYU team, which is incredible. What was that process like for that semester? How did it compare to the club? I'm sure there were similarities and I'm sure there was differences. Can you kind of like walk us through that?
Yeah. I think I got a good basis of what it meant to be. eh, Here are your workout days, and here are your easy days, and like that's what the
Intent.
club was. Yes, and this is what it means to kind of push yourself in a workout and jump in a race here and there. But walking on, it was like the two hardest weeks of my life, like physically. It was, I remember coach wanted me to show up. My first day was a workout day. And I remember the first rep of whatever we were doing, and I can't even tell you what we were doing. Because it didn't matter.
Right. Like you were there. That's what mattered. Like you were
That's what
there,
mattered.
ready to run.
I was deer in the headlights. Like it was a little scary, and here's Connor on the sideline, just good luck, have fun. But she said the pace we were trying to run, and I was like, I've never ran that fast. So I jumped on the train, and it was the best way to describe it is it felt like a roller coaster, like the start of a roller
Yeah.
coaster, and you're going. Like it was so, my body had never moved that way that fast. And
Hmm.
so that was, and I remember finishing that first. Like I didn't make it the whole workout, like I needed to cut it. And I was
Yeah.
like, well, and I wasn't like embarrassed or humiliated. I was kind of like, look, I got a long shot to make this team. And so the fact that I'm here is
Yeah.
a privilege in and of itself. And so I really didn't, I had no pride. There was no pride that day. I was just kind of bouncing off the walls, made it to the tryout healthy and I could run and all of that. That next, so but it was exhausting. And then she's like, all right, you're gonna hit the weights, and then we've got more after that. And I was like, oh, I thought it was just a workout. Like I didn't realize I was here till 7, 8 o'clock at night. Like it was kind of a lot. But then I came the next workout day and it went a little better.
Yeah.
And she's like, maybe. And that was all I got from her. And you don't get very much from her. So you pick up these little nuggets from her along the way, and you're like, I don't know what she's thinking, but we'll see.
I'll take the maybe. I will take the maybe on day
I'll take
2.
the maybe is not a no. And so,
Right.
and then that next week, um, it was still so hard. But at the end, I was like, okay, what do you think? And she was like, well, I don't know. We need to figure out a couple things, but show up again next week. And I was like, so I'm taking that as a yes that I made it. And so that's just kind of the communication at that point, which makes me laugh.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was never like a congratulations, you made it. It was just like, all right, so next week this is what you're doing. All right, I guess I'm on, you know?
Yeah.
And so there wasn't that big like climax of you made it type of thing. It was just like, all right, show up next week, which honestly kind of kept the emotions at bay. It made it
Yeah.
so I didn't get complacent. And
Yeah.
so she actually was really smart in how she went about it, even though it was like, am I on? But I appreciated how she ended up doing it.
Yeah, I think that's actually it's a really beautiful way to do it because it did make you hungry. You still wanted to show up, maybe make her proud or try to get further in the workout, something like that, just for you to say, I am doing a little bit more this week. I think a lot of us can relate to that. I coach a lot of marathoners, and then there's something about marathoners wanting to either only run marathons or run Ks after their marathons.
That's
And
interesting.
yeah, to the athletes who transition from marathons to 5K training, they're kind of in shock. Like that first workout or 3 or 5 where they are running shorter repetitions, but they are so much faster than they're used to running
Mm,
that I think it kind of shocks the body a little bit. And that's kind of what I was hearing from you of like that first workout was like, it was kind of a shock to your body. It was like, maybe I haven't been doing this volume. I definitely haven't been doing this intensity, but I honored myself. I honored my body. I decided to, shut it down when it was appropriate. And I'm going to show up next week and see what I got.
totally, totally. And I
Yeah.
think she has Coach Taylor has an amazing ability to just watch you and know what you need. Like
I
watch
love
your
that.
gait and just kind of figure that out. And so she's like, "Man, you're out," you know? And it wasn't like bring me down or anything. It was just like
Yeah.
that's your time. That's what your body can do. And I'm
Yeah.
here to make sure it's more important to me that you're healthy than it is that you're able to finish a workout, which I appreciate.
100%. Absolutely. Do you feel like there was any imposter syndrome when you jumped on this team and there's all these girls and they're faster than you, maybe not all of them, but you're jumping on
Yeah.
the train, which is the running train on the track, right?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, which is like so fun. If you can hold your own on the track. Was there any of that imposter syndrome coming up for you? And if so, how did you flow through that?
Yeah, so after I think I was in week 3, maybe. And Connor needed to go out to Boston to go check out the course. And it happened to
Yeah.
be the same time as the BU meet. And so he's like, "Well, you're not officially on the team." And so because my official season started outdoor, but I trained with them all through indoor. But Coach Taylor and Connor were proponents of me just doing a little 3K on BU's track while he's out there training anyways. And so I
Yeah.
had to be there for all things Nike and Boston Marathon. And so it kind of worked out, but I remember that first, and I'm not a 3K runner. That was especially on BU's track. I'm scared. That track kind of freaked me out, but it was a bad, bad race. And I finished and looked at coach and I was like, "Well, I don't know." And she's like, "You're not a 3K girl and that's okay." It was kind of that was a little bit humiliating, but I got over it pretty quick. But I remember the next day being like coach was like, "Okay, go do the long run with the girls
Yeah.
just along the river in Boston."
Yeah.
And I remember all of a sudden feeling that imposter syndrome. Like, I had a really bad race last night and
Oh,
not that good, but these girls are really good. And like, and I'm older than the majority of them. I'm a
yeah.
senior. I'm almost done. And so it was kind of this weird headspace. I'm like, thanks, coach, and for believing in my dream, but I don't know if I'm really that good and I can do it. And
Yeah.
so it took me actually acknowledging that and actually saying I have imposter syndrome that it actually kind of helped me. Like, I recognize where I am,
Mhm.
but I can kind of work through it. And so it didn't last super long.
Yeah, I think that's super healthy. And I think it's also very, very normal to look, especially after something like a 3,000 meter race or a 3K race that doesn't go the way that you hoped it would. And then it's like the following morning, there's like very little time to process it. You're going into this long run with other fast women and you just want to like hold your own and feel like you have your place there.
Totally.
What was the distance that you were training for when you were with the BYU team, and how has that has it changed at all since, over the last few months? I think I heard you mention something about a half marathon coming up, maybe next month?
It's next week.
Oh, it's next week. Oh my gosh, which is next month, but also, whoa.
Yes. Yeah. That's a whole, yes. We're full sending right now. Yeah. No,
Okay,
coach wanted me to focus on the 10K.
love it.
I don't have that kind of speed, and I
Yeah.
don't have that kind of built up. But she's like, what you do have what other girls don't like. She is a low volume and mileage, but lots of cross training. So
Yeah.
like workouts are super intense, but they're not very long.
Yeah.
So, but for me, like super fast stuff, like it feels like my body is screaming at me and I'm going to war. And I don't like that feeling. Like it's not fun for me. And
Yeah.
so she wanted me to focus on the 10K, 5K. And so that's what I did. And I did do 10Ks and a 5K during my season in
Yeah.
uniform. And
Yeah.
then Boulder, and then next week we're ending my season with a local half marathon just down Provo Canyon.
Yeah, I love that so much for you. What is your favorite thing about the 5K, 10K distance? Because it's a middle distance event. It's not easy. I think it's long enough where, if you lose focus, well, you could say this with any race, you really have to stay focused throughout. And, for you to excel, I think in that distance, those distances, I think it really shows not just speed, but a lot of strength as well. What is your favorite thing about those distances?
I do like that one bad mistake you still have time to make up. And
Mhm.
so if you go a little slow or you end up take a lap out wide, you can come back in. And I do actually and I hope later that I have more chances to I like working with people too. And I just like going long. It's more fulfilling to go um on a long run versus I'm gonna go run a really fast mile. That just doesn't sound very fulfilling to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can go crank out a long run. Feels a lot more fulfilling. Distances wise, though, I did like the 10 more than the 5.
Yeah.
But I don't know. And I probably shouldn't voice my opinion because I didn't really have too many opportunities. And so I don't know if I totally have an opinion on it. But
Yeah.
I appreciate 10s on the road because it's just a little more 25 laps on a track.
It's a lot.
You get dizzy. It's just this is really long. And sometimes it's so calculated that sometimes there's
Yeah.
no mercy. And so it's like
Yeah.
with Boulder, it's well, it was hilly, it was raining, and
Yeah.
there's other things where it's like the track, it's like you're just slow, you know. And so you just hit the pace. And so sometimes the no mercy was for me, but I did really
Yeah.
like being it was fun to kind of I felt like a competitor, but I didn't feel like I was going to war. And so
Yeah.
I liked that a little better.
Yeah. And it could be exactly like your unique ability within the sport. Like if you can tackle that and channel that and be in it, like you can find a lot within that distance or maybe the half marathon. Is this your first half marathon?
It's my second. I actually did
Okay.
this our first his Connor's first Boulder, I did Boulder. And
Yeah.
then but then had FOMO that I didn't do this half marathon. And so last year I did the half marathon and not Boulder, and then I got FOMO that I didn't do Boulder. And so this year I'm doing Boulder and the half marathon and full sending both of them, and then taking a break.
Oh my gosh, that's so great. I love that.
Mhm.
So, was the Boulder more of like a workout tune up leading into your half then for next weekend? Yeah.
Yeah, it was more of a chewed up. We wanted it harder than wanted it obviously harder than workout per se, effort
Yeah.
wise, but just not like a full send. This is the last all be all race.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm super excited about the half marathon for you. It's my favorite distance. I think you do like the long runs, you have the endurance, you have the speed, you have the strength. So it could be a really, it will be a great day for you, but it'll be really interesting to hear after, like your thoughts on it and what you
Totally.
like about the half distance. How has your perspective on running changed at all? Maybe it has, maybe it hasn't, since you've morphed over the last few years from recreational runner to running with BYU and having all these incredible races that you get to kind of test your limits on.
I It's changed a lot and I love it. Like this sport is pretty awesome and I'm a pretty goal-oriented person. I always like to set goals and I do have that A-type oldest child personality. And so I feel like running kind of satisfies that in a way. I
Yeah.
also love my leadership side, just going back to high school and a little bit in college.
Yeah.
Uh, it's really fun for me to be behind the scenes of something really big. And obviously, being a wife is a big part of that. But then also just getting behind Nike, getting behind USATF, and kind of know what makes this work is super fascinating.
Yeah.
And it's fun to be in charge of the big events, but also but what do they have to do to make it work?
Yeah.
And I remember Connor quoting, and he'll quote it all the time. He's kind of Coach Mantz right now. And so he's kind of taken on the coaching. We're testing that out. I don't know how long it's going to last, but
I feel like he had a
right now,
different phrase. Didn't he use a different phrase on Sunday? He's like, he said something else. He's like, I'm not your coach. Like, I'm your, he said something. I can't,
advisor or something like that. It sounds like him.
I love
Yeah,
that.
he won't claim it, but I'm kind of just like, well, you're here. And he would try to like coach me and give me pointers. But I was like, what do you know about running? Like, stop telling me what to do. Like, I full on was like, you don't know anything, which is funny to think about. But I've humbled myself and I've realized you're pretty legit. Maybe I'll listen to you. So,
Yeah.
anyways, we still have
It's
our
so
moments.
funny.
Even today during our workout, I was like, "Ah,
Yeah.
that doesn't sound like a good idea. I'm going to do my own thing, you know. But sometimes I still have my moments. And,
Oh my God.
but
Yeah.
yes, that's kind
Well,
of where
what maybe is like maybe the biggest lesson you've learned from Connor? You know, you get to see his process, you get to see his training, you get to see the recovery aspect, which is sitting on the couch. I believe that is the recovery
that is the recovery piece. Yes, no,
like,
I think that the biggest thing I've learned, and that's shifted my mindset is your body's capable of more than what you think. And Connor will kind of
yeah,
preach that. You
yeah,
are capable of more than what you think you can,
yeah,
and you can do it even if life isn't perfect. I remember I've been thinking about this, just kind of thinking just to get ready for this. Had on my mission, our mission president, I was at the end, I was nearing the end, but he called us all in, all these missioners, and there's probably over 200 of us. And he's like, we're having a little bit of an issue. And like, as a mission, you're all in. That's what you're focused on. You're goal oriented, you're structured, very running-esque in that way. And he's like, we're having some issues with people just getting lazy is the wrong word, but complacent a little bit with what you're out here to do.
yeah,
And he's like, sure, it might be hard to kind of step away from the world, your own life, and you're not with your family, you're not at school, and he's like, I understand that that's hard, but sometimes we have to do missionary work scared. Sometimes we have to do it when we're bored. Sometimes we have to do it when we're anxious. And that's kind of come to mind lately in terms of running. Like sometimes you're tired, but you got to do it. And
yeah,
you gotta do it even if you're scared. You gotta run that race even if it's so scary. And you gotta go do that rep that Coach Taylor is telling you to do, and it sounds so scary. But I think, and I've tried to take that, and that doesn't mean push yourself to the point of death. Like obviously there
yeah.
are within bounds, if you're struggling, obviously get the help you need. But I think sometimes, and then going back to Connor's, like, you're capable of more than what you think. And not just a sense of belief and confidence, but test it. Be curious. Can I do that? I don't know if I can, but
Mhm.
I'm gonna try it because I know at the end I'm gonna be really satisfied and really happy with it. And so taking both of those, do run when you're scared, run when you're anxious, run when you're tired, because that consistency is what actually it's the mundanity of excellence. It's the little things that end up being great.
Well said. I love that so much, and I think it's such a great representation of running, of the sport, of Connor. I think for anyone who knows or has watched Connor race, like he does put it all out there, and you can see it on his face very early on in the race. Like he is going after it. He's putting himself out there. And I think it's one of the coolest lessons because with being uncomfortable or maybe shooting your shot, you find a lot of growth. You might find that your legs turn over and you get the three-peat at Boulder 10K or walking
Yeah,
on to the BYU team, right? And it could also be a different kind of outcome where maybe there's a lesson to be learned and then you can take it in to that next race or that next practice, learn from it, grow. But I absolutely love that so much.
thank you. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
that's the biggest lesson.
Yeah. We talked a lot about mantras on Sunday in our conversation. Do you use mantras in training and racing? And if so, can you share that with us?
Yeah, I started to gain a testimony per se of mantras last year, and I have two that I mentioned at our little thing. I have
Hmm.
one, and it's sit in the suck. So sometimes when you're hurting, you just kind of need to sit in the suck, and it just sucks, but it's gonna be okay. And just
Yeah.
sit in it because that's all you have to do. It's one
Yeah.
foot in front of
To
the
hold
other.
on. Yep.
And so sit in the suck is one of them, and that just kind of keeps me present. I guess that doesn't sound very motivating, and that kind of sounds a little dark, but I kind of like it because it just kind of keeps me. This is it's okay. You're gonna be fine.
Yeah.
And then my second one, I started to notice when I was in the middle of student teaching and getting up at the crack of dawn to do workouts and coming home and doing more. And I just remember thinking like, I can't do it. I can't hit that pace. I can't run for that long. And I'm coming off of injury. I can't walk on to BYU. I can't do it. And I realized the word I kept saying was can't. And that was dragging me down. And so I've changed it to yes, I can. And so when I need a little pick me up, yes, you can. Yes, you can.
Yeah.
Yes, you can.
I
So
love
those are
that.
my two.
I love that. And I think with mantras, they're just so unique and personalized to the person that, like, what works for you might not work for another person. But I have to say, like, listening on Sunday and listening to your mantra of yes, I can. And then I know Connor asked you what his mantra was. And at the time you were like, I'm not quite sure. He was like,
I was
he
getting
was like, you
confused with
don't
my
know? What is Connor's mantra that he uses in races?
Connor. Connor's is I can do this. I can do
You
this.
can
I
do
can do
this.
this.
Yes.
So it's kind of the same. Yes, I can. It's kind of the same
Yeah,
thing.
I think it's just like what resonates with you more. And I have to say that on Monday, at a certain point in the race, I used the yes, I can. It was
That's
in the
awesome.
second half of the race, and I was like, yes, I can. Yes, I can. I can do this. And it's so cool how mantras can be, universally used with runners and motivate them and kind of create that strength and power when things are feeling a little sideways, maybe in the race.
Hmm.
And they're just so cool. Have you ever used different mantras for different like seasons or different races? Because I've heard Kara Goucher talk about that. Like for every big training cycle, she would have a different mantra that represents how she wants to show up in that specific cycle. So if it's like a Boston training cycle that's hilly, you got to be strong, you got to be tough, it will represent something like that, where like a Chicago or a Houston or a Chicago or Berlin would be like speed, light, something like that.
I haven't ran long enough to actually have that. That's
That's
a
fair.
genius idea, and I should start doing that. That might be really. I think there are people who do that, and that I think that's a really genius idea, and I would support people who do that. But
Yeah.
yeah, I
Yeah.
would
And
love
that's a
to
fair
have.
answer.
Yeah, yeah.
That's why
I
we're here
loved
today.
I loved what sometimes in the middle, at least during track, Coach Taylor would have her own. Like she was kind of my mantra person in the back. Like I wasn't really saying much, but I knew like
Yeah.
when I'm coming around that first lap, where's coach? Where's coach? Because that's the
Yeah.
only person I care about right now.
100%.
And she doesn't have very many, but it's all over the internet. You can see her cheering, and it's pretty
Yeah.
epic. But just sometimes it's you're good, you're good. Like just stay exactly where you are.
Yeah. And
And
sometimes that's what I think you need, like in the
mhm,
moment. And she's probably really great at not only giving feedback to you, but also telling you or giving you that encouragement for exactly what you need for that rep.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes that just means like do the best you can. And
Yeah.
that's not a perfect or wonderful, beautiful, those are when you're absolutely crushing it. But just sometimes you're good. And I'm like, all right, at least I'm good. It's not like it's so sometimes hearing her was super encouraging. So I actually didn't use very many mantras when I was with the team, but I've
Yeah.
started to kind of reincorporate those now that I'm on my own.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I love that. And that'll evolve over time for sure, just like you're running well as you get faster and faster. And like, depending on, where where your running journey takes you. It's going to be really cool.
Yeah,
A few more questions. Are there ever moments in your individual training where you have, you spoke earlier about maybe going out to Boston to help or support Connor when he was running the course for practice and you got to run with Boston University girls? Are there ever moments where like your individual training needs or race schedules kind of create some challenges with the both of your schedules or home life, or kind of how do you like work together to support each other and but also like stay true to what you need to do in the sport or with home or with
that's
anything?
that's a really good question. We should probably have a DTR about that. Let's talk about that one. Yeah, this is kind of funny, but after one of my biggest worries about going to Paris, which this sounds kind of
Yeah.
selfish, um, was like, how am I going to get my training in? It sounds really silly. It's like you're at the
100%.
Olympics, chill out. But I was like, I've got one shot, and I've got student teaching coming. We're here in Europe for over 2 weeks. How am I going to do it? And so it has actually in that was kind of the one thing that was like, huh, like, and we've talked through that one, and I'm like, I probably was out of line there. I probably could have chilled, and I'm not going to lose fitness going to Paris. I'm going to be fine. And I came back totally wrecked because we're across the world.
Yeah.
But there have been times when our own sometimes it does. Connor's really good about like I really try. I guess the one so that was one, and then the other time was sometimes me being on the team was awesome, but our workout days were opposite days, and so every day felt like a workout day. Every day felt like a long day. And so
Yeah.
it kind of wore on us a little bit, and it was fine. It was a time in a season, and so grateful for it. But I
Yeah.
knew afterwards for the sake of my marriage, probably not. I can't be doing this. And so
Not long term.
long term. And so I'm like, this worked out great. Thanks, Coach Taylor, and thanks BYU for the wonderful experience. But now that I am finished with that, how can I make sure that we're aligned? And it's been great, it honestly, and it was super fun to like all the past couple weeks. It's like, so what, coach, what workout am I doing? And
Yeah.
he's like, "You're gonna do the same thing that we are because we're training for the same race." So and it's kind of nice when that lines up. And I don't know that it will be the same always.
Yeah.
Um, but I that was something big. Like we need to make sure that we are aligned. I guess the other thing is making sure that I that we're balanced in our life and running doesn't consume us. And
Yeah.
so we really tried to get involved in our church area, and then also we just bought a new home, and so I'm trying to put together a new home. And I remember when we did our low altitude stint in Park City, I got really lonely. I was like, I'm in a beautiful place and living this kind of like professional athlete life, which is super fun, but I'm like,
Yeah.
I cannot go for a run, sit on the couch, and go for another run. Like that sounds so boring. And so I know in the future I need some more things that keeps me holistic and a whole person.
Yeah.
And those are kind of so we've I don't know, those are the things so far in our marriage. And I know that
Yeah.
in the future we'll have more things that we need to do. But yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's really cool how you flowed through it. And, you are a human. So it's like a very human thing to think about, like, well, what about my training? Like, what about where am I going to run in Paris? Now, for a while, did you travel with Connor as they kind of navigated? Because they didn't stay in Paris. I think they went to the opening ceremonies and then they traveled to Switzerland. Okay. Yeah, I'm a big fan of Clayton's YouTube channel.
That is a great way to know what's going on.
It's just pure joy. And yeah, I mean, were you traveling then with them throughout that entire like 2 week stint?
Yeah, so Connor went to the opening ceremonies, but the day that he left for that, we were also we had Airbnb up in Park City, and so I kind of shut down the Airbnb and then
Mm,
met him in Switzerland.
I see.
And so I just didn't do the opening ceremonies part. I just went straight to Switzerland, but
Yeah.
was there until the end.
That's so cool. That's so great. Do you see yourself running a marathon or getting into the marathon space at some time, or does that distance just totally disinterest you?
Well, my curiosity is already there, and I'm like,
Yeah.
but I already know that Connor needs like I remember I finished my first half and he goes, You're not ready for a marathon yet. We're gonna need to get you and it wasn't like a
Yeah.
diss, it was more just like there are some other like you're gonna need a
Yeah.
little more experience. So I know down the line, absolutely. When that will be, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, the half marathon distance is such a great distance to prepare your body in the best way possible, prepare your mind, but it is, and I'm sure you've heard this from him, it's just a very different distance. It's not twice as hard. It's exponentially harder than a half. And
Yes.
there's so many things that can happen outside of your control within 26.2. But I'm really excited for you. I'm really excited to watch your progress and track you and see where you go in this sport. You have a lot of talent, and I also think that you have a very mature mindset around all of it too at a young age, and
Mhm.
that's really cool to see. So, thank you so much for your time today.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Is
Mhm.
there anything that we didn't talk about that you wanted to talk about today?
Not anything off the top of my mind, but
Okay, great.
no, I'm just happy
Great.
to share my story.
Yeah, I think it's an incredible story. It's so inspiring and so much like good to come from it. If our audience is interested in following you online or supporting you, where can they go?
Connor and I do use Strava, and so if anyone uses Strava, we are on there. I'm not very fun. I throw down what I'm doing, but I'm Connor's more fun to follow on Strava. And then both of us on I try to keep our social medias. Connor takes a more professional athlete approach with his social media. But I try to fill everybody in on like what does your life look like outside of this or inside of it. And so feel free to follow me because yeah, I love to share what we're doing.
I love that. What's your handle for everyone listening?
Kylie, Kylie, Mantz, Mantz.
Perfect. That's so great. And I have to say, I recently started following you, like once we connected on Sunday. Your posts are so beautifully written and like there's a
Thank you.
message in each post and I
Mhm.
love that type of content. I love it. So for everyone listening, go ahead, follow Kylie. You won't regret it. It's going to be awesome. Thank you again so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
All right, we'll see everyone again next week. Have a great week.